Season 7. Well, I suppose we can't really say they skimped on the finale. We got 7 new characters and a lore bomb that explains the creation of the elements of harmony. The amount of theory fuel that Josh Haber and the writing staff threw on the fire is enough for a nuke. Hello everypony, I'm Dulcet the Pony of Harmonics, and welcome to another season finale episode of Headcanon. I know you've all been waiting for this one, so it's time to make some waves in ways that you might not have expected. Season 7 introduced the characters of Rockhoof, Mistmane, Flash Magnus, Sonambula, and Meadowbrook. But that's not the first time we've heard of these characters. We first got a hint of Mage Meadowbrook back in the beginning of Season 5.
It was one of the great Mage Meadowbrook's 9 enchanted items. We are incredibly fortunate to have it here.
However, when we learn about her in Health of Information, she's not a mage at all. She's an alchemist, a potioner, a healer, and we don't see anything about Meadowbrook's magical items. Moreover, Twilight said that Meadowbrook was an Eastern unicorn.
I haven't studied Eastern unicorns as much as I should have, but I'm pretty sure Meadowbrook only had 8 magical items, not 9.
So, Twilight Sparkle, the princess of book horses, was taught in a school that Meadowbrook was a unicorn. But things don't just stop there. Oh no. By the time I'm through with this video, I intend to prove that the entire history of the Pillars has been manipulated. Meadowbrook may have been the first of the Pillars other than Star Swirl to be mentioned in canon, but she wasn't the last. Back during the Season 6 premiere, all the other Pillars were mentioned.
Well, actually there's several. Mistmane's Material Amity, Rockhoof's Rapport, Flash Prance's Fellowship.
Quick aside here, Flash Prance is actually Flash Magnus. The name Flash Prance had some legal issues after the episode, so it was eventually switched to Flash Magnus. And I'm pretty sure they changed the character's gender too, but that part's unconfirmed. We also see Sunburst giving Starlight
Somnambula's Weather Abjuration to clear away the snow.
That is 4 additional spells implied to have been written by these characters. As close to our knowledge of them at the time, we could only assume they were all unicorns. So, why, in the 1,000 years since their disappearance, were they considered unicorns? Why were their spells written by them? Why was Meadowbrook considered an Eastern unicorn like Mistmane? And why is it the Pillars were reduced to nothing but legends passed down by word of mouth? Before we get too far, there may be some of you out there who are just about a hair's breadth away from hitting enter on a comment that says, "You're grasping at straws, these are just continuity errors and nothing more." And to be fair, you would be wrong. However, the crystalling and shadowplay are both written by Josh Haber, and the cutie map was a part of his first directorial season. On top of that, we know, due to interviews and Twitter replies, that starting in Season 5, details were written into the show that were designed to be carried over into future episodes. Even minute details like Starlight's kites in her bedroom in Season 6 being brought up in Season 7 were all planned out in advance by the team. In addition, the IDW team was brought in to make a more cohesive unit, with the Legends of Magic series following and adding additional lore to our 6 Pillars. The saga is the closest to canon the comics have ever been. But let's get back to the action, and talk about how the Pillars would be mistaken for ordinary unicorns. It seems almost impossible that such important figures in equestrian history would have their information degrade so drastically. However, it's been done in other media before. Specifically one of my other favorite shows, RWBY. This is going to contain some major spoilers for Season 3 of that show, so hurry up and catch up watching it before you continue this video. Seriously, it's only like 6 hours to binge watch the first 3 seasons. You done? Good. In Season 3, Professor Ozpin and the other teachers reveal they're a part of an organization created to protect the seasonal maidens. This brotherhood was formed hundreds of years earlier to protect them and their overwhelming power from those that would seek to use it against humanity. The best way to protect them was to remove them from the public eye, destroy the records of their existence, and let it slowly fade into legend. The fact that the maidens still exist became a closely guarded secret. Now, while one fictional media doesn't relate to another, it is a proof of concept. A real character can fade into legend if the facts are intentionally manipulated to remove that they existed. This raises the question of why. Why were they shoved into legend? Well, if we use Ruby's example, it was to protect them. This makes a bit of sense. The families of the Pillars would be a prime target for cunning enemies. However, once they disappeared, the threat to their loved ones would also disappear. We could also say they hid from the limelight. We've seen how that can backfire. The other side of that coin could be more malicious, however. To conceal their existence, to force everyone to forget about them. Never existing is an egregious horror for many people, that they'll never be remembered. And as it comes to pass, we have a canon example of this happening. Remember when I said the MLP writing team worked with the IDW team for the later seasons, and that the Legends of Magic is essentially canon because of that collaboration? Well, there is one more saga that is canon to the series because of Shadowplay. The From Shadows arc. No, wrong series. The From Shadow... Stop that! The From... You. You're really doing this right now? Anyway, the previously referenced arc is a 3-comic miniseries in the main IDW Comics line, comprised of issues 51, 52, and 53. It spans the hunt for a unicorn named Shadowlock, who has the ability to erase not only the contents of books, but whatever knowledge was learned from those books by those who read it. Shadowlock is the descendant of an ancient evil that was banished over 1,000 years ago. By the end of Season 7, we learn that evil is the Pony of Shadows, and thus that means that he's related to Stygian, ally of the Six Pillars. Thus, Shadowlock embarked on a near-impossible journey to erase Stygian from history, not realizing how monumental a task it was. Stygian was the strategist, information gatherer, and record keeper for the Pillars. He was essentially the Otacon to Starswirl's Snake. He wrote books on monsters, spells, and other parts of historical documents that founded Equestria and its educational system. To remove Stygian would cause immense damage to equestrian history. However, Shadowlock had no idea about his family history until he discovered it in the attic a year prior, meaning that likely he didn't know the importance of his family line. He was also very aggressive and reckless in his tactics in his desperation to rid himself of the legacy of shadows. He knew what he could do, but didn't know the impact that it could make. With these gaps in Pony's memories caused by the erasure, other logic began to fill in the blanks. Meadowbrook became an Eastern unicorn, and the 6 magical objects of the Pillars became Meadowbrook's 8 enchanted items. The spells written by Stygian were erased, but what about the others in those spellbooks? They were linked to others who didn't write them, who had some logical connection to them. Even the princesses were affected, not remembering the other Pillars and their deeds. The only thing that remained was the unwritten word, memory, tales passed down by word of mouth. Without physical proof, it was written off as legend. If you need further evidence of this concept, here's an example from the finale itself.
The Hollow Shades. I think a branch of the Apple family lives there.
They'd have to be pretty distant. The Hollow Shades was abandoned eons ago.
Why would AJ say a branch of the Apples lived there, but Sunburst said it's been abandoned? Because the Hollow Shades were erased, and both AJ and Sunburst brought it to its most logical conclusions for their minds. A reinforcement of this was when Sunburst said,
I definitely would have remembered reading about this.
Yeah, he would have, if all the records of the shrine weren't wiped from existence. Clear proof that Shadowlock's changes actually did work. If you remember earlier, I said this was a malicious intent to change history. Shadowlock was doing it to protect himself, to rid himself of the vile shadow that overcame him. This was an act of desperation, not malice. Or was it? During the pages where we see Shadowlock's past, we see him developing his power. At some point, he gets a scar on his nose that is left unexplained, but afterwards he's shown to have the ability to wipe the books. I believe this may have been a kind of subtle contract between him and the Shadow, manipulating him into clearing the books of his name. It's really odd that the Shadow would appear in every book he read after learning his name, and we do know that the Shadow can work independently from Stygian. This leads me to believe that while Shadowlock believed he was doing the right thing, he was manipulated into wiping the books by the shadow for its inevitable return. At least that's my headcanon. And wowee, that was one doozy of a video to research. I want to apologize for the length of time it took to get this one out. I wanted to get the physical copies of the comics so I could read through them for myself and inspect them in greater detail on my own, and it took much longer than I thought. However, I think it was time well spent. Back when I made my theory on the Season 6 finale, I weaved together a huge story that could have happened but never did. Well, I mean, partially did. Back then I said I gave Josh Haber too much credit. I may have to walk that back now, considering the scope of how grand this entire story came out to be. Now, I fully admit that this may all just be continuity errors, but I would like to think that isn't the case, or if it was continuity error, they manipulated it later into something more. Like how Larson turned Bon Bon into a secret agent because her toy name is Sweetie Drops, and she had several different voices in the show. This attention to detail only enhances the show, and gives us more to enjoy. Speaking of, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and make sure to hit that bell icon to be alerted for future videos. If you want to help me in making future videos, please consider donating to my Patreon, and a big shout out to all those who are supporting me already. Until next time, always keep theorizing. You just might wind up right. Thanks for watching.